In this video, I'll show you how to paint a Space Marine Librarian. So the Space Marine Librarian won the vote. Apologies that we're not getting Morgwyth this week, but we will be getting her next week. So in terms of this, we've primed it with Chaos Black, and then I've just given it some white over the front because that's going to help us with these brighter elements. Actually, it's totally dark on the other side. So first thing we want to do is get that armour blocked in. So we're going to do this with some Kantor Blue, which is a dark blue. It doesn't have to be Kantor Blue, it can be any dark blue that you've got. And you can see there, it goes on okay, does our Kantor Blue, but we may need a couple of thin coats. One thing to bear in mind, this shoulder pad here, that's the chapter shoulder pad, so leave that blank unless you want to do it dark blue, so Crimson Fist Librarian for example. What you'll see here on the front as well is that when you kind of paint over that white, it's a lot lighter than when you paint over the dark. So like I said, we're going to need these two coats, but it's going to give us some nice interesting tones on the armour. So work your way around all the armour, and then when we come back, we'll make a start on everything else. If you watch my Space Marine videos, you'll know that I do the armour last. And the reason for that is it's easier to go in and make corrections before the armour's finished. So just work your way around, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at probably some metallics next. Once we've got a nice even coat of the Kantor Blue, let's get the silver metallic started. So I'm using iron hand steel for this, and in the main this should cover pretty well. So we should be able to get away with one coat in most places. In terms of what we're looking for, I'm just looking for all the silver metallic parts, so take your time and spot them out. And one thing you can do with this is that if you spot a bit, to the keys on the front here, like the tubing here, where you've got the kind of the black naturally in the shadow already, then you can kind of work that in to there, and you kind of leave that shade, so it just saves a little bit later when it comes to shading the silver metallics down. So work your way around. Got the bottom part of the staff here as well. Where you get the darker colours, you may need to think about two coats, but like I said, take your time, back yourself, enjoy what you're doing, and we'll come back. We'll shade it all next. Just check that box art if you're not sure, to get all the silver bits. Now that all that silver's done, we can shade it with some Nuln Oil. And this is going to be real simple, real easy, real straightforward. Just popping Nuln Oil over all the bits of silver we've done. And the other thing we're going to use the Nuln Oil for is shading the armour. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm just pretty much going to paint over the majority of the armour. Where I've got a big spot like that, I know I don't need to paint the whole thing, so I'm not going to waste my Nuln Oil and also my time having to go back in there. But certainly where we've got things like the hood, we've got a lot of detail around there, and certainly around the arms, the fingers for example here, we can pop that Nuln Oil on because we can go back in with the Kantor Blue to highlight them back up. So just work your way around the model, adding this nice bit of shadow around everything, especially the metallic bits, and then we'll come back and hopefully we should have things starting to develop. Then we'll highlight the silver and we'll move on to the gold before getting into all the kind of organic textures. Once we're sure that that Nuln Oil is dry, we're going to highlight the metal using chrome from Vallejo Model A, and this is going to be a real simple step. All we're looking to do is catch those edges just to give a nice sharp highlight. It's pretty straightforward. Where you can't catch that edge, just try and hold everything steady and just kind of dot in those highlights. It's one of the reasons I prefer the chrome, because it's designed for an airbrush. It's fairly fluid, so you can get a nice sharp edge with it. Just running it, it doesn't kind of get stuck because it's not lumpy and too thick. So work your way around the model, get all that silver highlighted, and then we'll come back and make a start on the gold. Just before I do jump off, let me just remind you, get all these kind of nodes done as well, because we're going to put a little bit of a glow on them later to make it look like he's throwing some lightning. And same on the hand as well, we put a little bit of a glow on there. Next up then is the gold. Now there's quite a lot of gold on the model. There's some really big bits, some not so big bits. So just refer to the box art and then take your time working your way around the model. I'm going to do that a little bit off cam where I kind of just work in there, because I don't want to get any on the tubes, because we're going to use some contrast paint on them and it's going to be a lot easier to use it or to put the base down if we've got a white base to start from. So just work your way all the way around the model, finding all the bits that are going to be gold. Remember to be tidy when you come to areas that you've already finished, but when we're in an area like this we can be a little bit messier. It's no great shakes. Now you may need 2 coats of gold, so you can see there going over the black. It's okay, but it looks a bit green, which means the black is showing through, so probably go in and just tidy that up with a second coat. So nice and simple, work your way around. Everything needs to be gold, get it gold. So we've got lots of decoration. If you're not sure which bits you're doing, check the box art. And then take your time when we're over the blue armour as well, because we don't want to go and correct too much, you can avoid it. So get that done, we'll come back, we'll shade it and highlight it all next, and then like I said, we've got the metals done, we'll get onto some of the more organic stuff next. Shading up that gold is really nice and simple, just like the silver, except we're using Reikland Fleshshade here to give us a really nice warm gold. Now you can use different colours to shade your gold if you want, depending on the kind of effect you want, and it's always worth recommending. I used to be a big fan of using purple to shade the gold, and you can also use green to shade it for a kind of more, for an older kind of looking gold, I guess. It's entirely up to you. You see, all I'm doing is I'm just popping it into these recesses. I'm not putting too much on though, because what I don't want to happen, I don't want it to pool, and I don't want to have some really dark red or dark flesh kind of shaded areas that I'm going to have to kind of go back into and try and pick up. So just work your way around the model, taking your time. Again, being careful of stuff that you've already finished. And around the silver metallics and the kind of the blue armour a little bit. Here I don't mind it being so thick, because actually there's quite a bit of stuff going on around there, and the gold isn't going to be the most prominent part because it's kind of behind everything. So just work your way around, and then we'll come back and we'll give it a nice little highlight next. Highlighting the gold is as easy again as highlighting the silver, so we're going to use Liberator Gold, and what we're looking to do is just catch as many sharp edges as we can, like that. Now, I said at the start I wasn't sure if I was going to paint this as an ultramarine, whether or not I was going to do it as something different, and I think I'm going to paint it to go into my Imperial Fist Crusade Force. So that means that I'm going to be painting this shoulder pad yellow. If you're not sure how to paint Imperial Fist, then there should, hopefully, if I've done my video editing correctly, be a card popping up in the top right, which is a link to my Imperial Fist tutorial, which is, I think, perhaps my most popular tutorial, showing you how to paint yellow and hopefully taking some of the mysticism out of it. So in the meantime, we just want to get all this gold highlighted, and I think once we've got all the gold done, we'll drop back and we'll do some of the black parts, which are some of the darker areas, and then we can move on to all the light areas, all the bone work, scroll work, the tubes, etc. Once we've done that, we're not going to be a huge distance away from finishing. When you break the model down into simple stages, it's actually fairly quick to finish to a nice standard. So I'm probably going to be doing that Imperial Fist shoulder pad off cam as well. Might get the base coat yellow done soon, just so I can see how it all looks together as a composition. And when we come back, we'll have a look at some of the darker areas. That gold is looking really nice and shiny now, so let's move on to some of the dark areas. Just using Abaddon Black for this, and what we're looking for is all these kind of areas that are going to be black, so bits of tubing. Again, take your time and be careful when you kind of get up to the armour. Got the legs on the back. There's not too much black on this model actually, it's quite a bright model. This part of the staff here needs to be black, so just be careful working around the bits you've already finished in gold, and obviously the silver bits you've already finished as well. And the other thing I'm going to do in black is the gun casing. Now on the box art, the gun casing is red, but I'm going to do it black to match the rest of my Imperial Fist weapons, because that's where this chap's going. He's going on crusade with my Imperial Fist 5th company, of which I've painted just the captain, and you can see that if you want to have a look at Instagram. The link to it's in the description of the video. You can see my Imperial Fist 5th company captain somewhere amongst all my minis. So get that black finished and we'll highlight it next. In this step, we're going to do two things. We're going to highlight the black, and we're going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey for that. So a good point on your brush. You might recognise as well, if you watch a lot of my videos, I'm using a different type of brush today. So I'm using a Broken Toad brush. I bought it myself, so there's no sponsorship or anything like that. And I've got to say that so far, I really quite enjoy it. Whether it'll replace my Winsor and Newton long term, I don't know. It depends on the durability of the brush, because I live in an area where the water's fairly hard, and even though with a bit of brush soap, I do tend to go through brushes quite regularly. So we'll see. So I'm going to highlight the black, but I'm also going to base all the kind of bits that are going to be a stone colour. And using the Mechanicus Standard Grey to do this saves us a step, so it saves us putting a lighter grey down, then shading it. What the Mechanicus Grey will do is act as a base and a shade. It'll kind of be the darkest the grey will get, and we'll brighten it up. So in terms of the stonework, we've got that bit on the knee there, and we've got the Crux Terminatus on the shoulder pads there. So just paint all that in. Don't worry about getting it into the recesses, because like I said, this is going to be the darkest grey on there. Let's just get a nice coat on it, and then when we come back, we'll move on to the next shade of grey. Moving on to highlighting the stonework, we're going to take some Dawnstone, and essentially what we want to do is we want to highlight all the kind of raised areas and leave that Mechanicus Standard Grey in the recesses. So you can see they're nice and straightforward on the knee. And then on the Crux Terminatus, a little bit more complicated because we've got more kind of shapes, not so many hard edges that we can catch. But just take your time, work your way around. Where you can hit that edge, just drag the brush around it. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll pop a lighter grey on it again, just to kind of make it pop a little. And the last highlight colour, which is quite a bit brighter, is going to be Administratum Grey. So make sure you haven't got too much on your brush. And here you're looking to just catch those top edges. Just to add to the brightness of the model. So where you can, use the side of the brush just to catch those bits that you want to be brighter. And then when we come back, we'll move on to the next bit. We'll have a look at doing the kind of the grips and the books next. And by the books, I kind of mean the back of the books, as well as the kind of the grip on the force staff there. So the colour we want is Screamer Pink, and I'm going to do the grip of the force stave, but I'm also going to do the I said the backings of the books, but I'm going to do the purity seals, the wax part of the purity seals, and instead of this being red, I'm going to do that with Screamer Pink as well, because I think it gives us a nice alternate colour to the red. So for the purity seals, again, nice and simple, straightforward. Just take your time, pop the Screamer Pink on, being careful not to catch on the lighter parts behind. That's just to make it easier for when we come to paint those. So you be careful you don't miss any, so work your way around the model. Just with this grip here as well, you need to take your time. And those eagled eye amongst you will notice that this shoulder pad has started getting lighter, as have some other areas. And it's just when I've had the lighter colours out that I've just gone in and just added a little bit to kind of help when it comes to later on and having to put brighter colours in. So there we are. We'll also do this, the inside of the cloak with the Screamer Pink. You see it goes on there and covers really nicely. And I think this complements the cream that we're going to do the robes really nicely as well. So just take your time and work it on. And then when we come back, we'll shade it. And of course, we will look to highlight the whole thing as well. I'm going to shade the Screamer Pink areas with a little Nuln Oil. Not too much though, because I don't want to flood it. I want to keep most of that Screamer Pink visible. Just want it to kind of get into the recesses and maybe stain the top a little. And this kind of back bit here is where we want to be the most careful, because it's really easy to throw too much on. So let that dry and we'll come back and we'll give it a little highlight. Highlighting all of those areas should be really super simple now. All we're doing is we're just taking some pink horror. We've got purity seals, so we're just kind of dabbing it on those kind of raised areas, and you see it gives us a really easy, nice highlight. When it comes to the bits of cloth, what I'm doing is make sure I haven't got too much on your brush, and just use the tip and try to catch that edge there. And you can run up there like that, and the same on the inside. Now the key to this is make sure you've got thinned your paint a little and you haven't got too much on your brush. It gives you a really nice edge like that. It's really nice and effective. For the grip, it's pretty much the same as what we did with the purity seals, because you can spend all day going in and painting the diamonds, but really we just want to kind of highlight the ones we can actually see. So just kind of dot around, being careful not to catch any other areas that we've already finished. And then once we've done that, we're on to the next colour. I think we'll start to tidy up the armour maybe, or maybe we'll just put the base coats down for all the purity seals and for the tabard. And then we'll, like I say, we're not too far away then, so we'll have a think about getting towards the end with all these kind of bone colours. The colour we're going to use to base up all these light areas is Rakarth Flesh. Now, where we sprayed that Corax white right at the start to prime the model, you can see it goes on really nicely there. Where we've not got that, so sort of on this purity seal here, not sure how I managed to miss it, but that's probably going to need 2 coats just on that side as well. Now in terms of what we're going to do with the Rakarth Flesh, there's going to be quite a lot. So I'm going to paint the tubes here with the Rakarth Flesh. Obviously all the pages of all the books are going to get painted with Rakarth Flesh. We're going to paint that tabard, these scrolls and the purity seals with Rakarth Flesh, and all the bone we're going to paint as well. So we've got obviously the symbol of the Librarius at the top there on the staff. We're going to paint all that with Rakarth Flesh, and we may need to give it 2 coats in some places, but if we do, absolutely no problem. We'll just get that done, and then in the next step we'll shade it, and we're going to be, actually no, we won't shade it in the next step, but we're going to paint more on that tabard in the next step, then we'll look to shade. You can see everything's looking a little brighter now, so what I'm going to do is I just want to put some warmth into this into the tabard. So I'm just going to take some Ushabti Bone and pop a layer on. Might need 2 layers, but 1 should be okay, just to cover up that Rakarth Flesh. So take your time with this, being careful not to get it over everything. And then when we come back, we'll have a look at shading both portions of the lighter bits we've done. We'll use the same shade, but we're going to use it in a different way to give us a better effect. The colour we're going to use for everything is Agrax Earthshade. Now, I said before we're going to do this in 2 different ways. So, for the cloth, we're just going to paint it into the recesses. That's a little too much. Just clean your brush off and just move it around. So we're going to paint it into the recesses on the cloth. For all the other areas, we're just going to paint it over the entirety of it. So over the purity seals, all the scroll work, etc. And it'll kind of fill those gaps nicely for us. So just work your way around, get that covered. For the bone work, we're going to cover everything with Agrax apart from the horns. So leave the horns, I'll explain why when we come back. Neighbours are being busy and noisy, apologies for that. So get all that done, we'll come back and I'll show you the next steps. It's looking okay now, so what we want to do is take the Rakarth Flesh we had and we want to highlight up these kind of areas, and we want to focus it towards the kind of the bottom areas that are not going to be in shadow, any raised areas like that there. And same for the scroll work. Just to kind of give that extra bit of brightness. For the books, we want to work kind of the edges there like that. And we want to pull out to the edge, and that'll give you a nice highlight on the books. For the skulls, what we're looking at in terms of a highlight is just catching those edges like you do any skull really. And there we are. So just make sure you get all the purity seals. So it's quite quick. You can see I'm not brush strokes, I'm just dabbing at the model, just catching paint on, and that gives me that nice blended effect. So we'll have a look at highlighting the robe next. To highlight that robe, we're looking for the sharp edges. And a little like we did on the inside, we're just going to take the tip of the brush, we're going to use some Wraithbone, and that's going to give us that nice sharp highlight along there. And the other thing we're going to do with the Wraithbone is we're going to paint all the pipes, because this is the easiest way of painting these pipes is with contrast paint, yellow contrast paint, Iyanden Yellow. So get that Wraithbone on there, and it'll give us a nice surface for it. And don't forget to do the big one coming from the force staff either. And then we've got one more highlight to do on the on the bone work. I think we're pretty much there before we think about going in and getting the armour done. It's been quite messy there because like the paint's not thin enough, so that's fine. I'll repair that when I kind of go in with the Kantor Blue before we do all the highlights. I'm going to finish up highlighting the bone and scroll work with some Pallid Wych Flesh, and this really is just those extreme edges just to give us some really nice brightness and help pull it away colour wise from the cloth. And again, you can see all I'm looking to do is just kind of catch those edges with the brush, not too much effort, again stabbing, pulling those edges along there. And then when it comes to the skulls, we're just looking to catch those absolute sharpest bits. We'll do the horns next. Again, for the books, we're looking for the sharpest bits. And in terms of decoration on the books, you can pop what you want on there. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on there yet. It's going to develop as the model goes. But we also want to look on the scroll work there. We want to highlight these up as well, so just be careful not to hit anything you've already finished. And again, I've probably not thinned my paint down enough there, so it's not coming off the brush as I want it to. So I just need to go away and put a bit more water in to thin it. And then we'll come back and we'll do all the piping next. Painting these tubes is super easy. Just taking some Iyanden Yellow contrast paint and making sure you paint over everything that you've previously painted with the Wraithbone. Take your time, make sure you don't spill it over onto its areas you've finished. Not too much of an issue on the blue, because you can always just go back and fix that. And don't forget to do the tube on the back as well. Actually, straight away, really easy, minimal effort, great result. For the horns coming off the skulls, we're just going to use some Nuln Oil to shade them. And the reason for that is if you look at the box art, the skulls are a darker, more like a black bone. Sorry, the horns are more of a darker black bone, whereas the skulls are just a more traditional kind of bone. So I'm just dabbing at them there to make sure that the Nuln Oil goes into the recesses. So let that dry and then you can make a call. You can highlight it, you can leave it be. It's entirely up to you. We're at the point now where things are looking pretty good. In terms of everything, so I'll do the scroll work and everything last. I might use some decals that I've got lying around. So what we want to do now is we want to go back onto that Kantor Blue and tidy up any mistakes you've made, anywhere you may have spilt Nuln Oil, and then when we come back we'll start highlighting all the armour. The first highlight for the blue armour is going to be Alaitoc Blue, and this is can afford to be a little bit of a thicker highlight because we'll refine it in the next step. So essentially what you want to do is you want to find those edges and pull the brush along them as best you can, whilst avoiding obviously other bits that you've already finished. It tends to be fairly straightforward on Space Marine Armour. And then where you can't pull it forward, just a good tip on your brush. Bring it round, just like that. Like I said, you can afford to be a little bit thicker with this stage, because we're going to be going in and popping some, another extreme highlight, and then depending on how the armour looks, we may even put like a dot extreme highlight on there as well later on. So just work your way around, pick up all the edges with this Alaitoc, and then when we come back, we'll do the next highlight. The next highlight on the blue armour, which we want to keep this as tight as we possibly can, is Hoeth Blue. So just kind of looking to get the tip of the brush on, just to catch the edge there. And we're looking to keep this inside the Alaitoc Blue that we used in the last stage. So just looking for those edges that are going to catch the most light. Make sure that it's thinned down, but not too much, because if you've got the paint's too thick, then it'll catch and it won't pull along when you pop it on those lines. So just take your time, work your way around. This is a really important part, so don't rush it. And then once we've got this done, that's the armour finished. We'll come back, we'll do the face, and then we'll look at doing all the glowing bits. That armour's looking pretty good and done, so let's quickly paint the face. Now, I don't normally put these in there because I've got a face painting video up, so I don't want to take your time with that, but just take some Kislev Flesh and paint it over. The reason I'm doing it in this video is because we're going to do glowing eyes and we need the face done, so I thought I might as well show you how to do it. So just coat the face with some Kislev Flesh. Make sure you've not missed anything, so you can see the shadow bits in there. Just work it around. It's going to need a couple of coats, and then we'll come back, shade and highlight it again. Shading the face is really easy. Take some Reikland Fleshshade and just get it in there. Just be careful not to let it pool too much. You can see there on the inside eye it's pooling a little bit too much. Just want to move some of that away. And we let that dry and come back to highlight. Once that Reikland Fleshshade is dry, just go back to your Kislev Flesh and pick out those raised areas. So just using the point of the brush there to get into them. Don't forget this side of the face as well, even though most of that will be in shadow. And the chin. Cheekbone. So it's a fairly easy bit to do because most of the head is covered by the psychic hood. So let that dry, and we've got one more highlight before we work on the eyes and all the other glowing bits. The last extreme highlight is just a little bit of Flayed One Flesh, just to kind of bring out the absolute most raised areas that are kind of in most of the light there. You see I'm just teasing it on the model, not smashing it on, just gently teasing it. And remember, when you put the brush on the model, you'll have more paint where the brush finishes. So move it to where you want it, and that should give you the best results. So there we are, that's not looking too bad. Let that dry, and we'll get set for the glowing bits next. To get all the glow effect, we're going to need some white scar. Now the first thing I want to do is paint this tube here with white scar, because we're going to have that nice glowing blue as well. Don't rush, take your time. If it needs 2 coats, it needs 2 coats. The other thing we've got the 2 lights here. So I'm just going to paint them with a little bit of white scar. Then I'm going to come back towards the eyes, and what I want to do is I want to work this white scar into the eye socket. So I want to tip on my brush, not too much paint on there. And I want to just paint that white in like that. Now the other side is a little more difficult because it's not so easy to just pull, so just do the best you can. Work the brush in there like that, and that's how you got a nice little bit of white there. Now the other thing we want to do, whilst we've got the white scar on the palette, is we want to dry brush up that hand a little bit. So what I want to do is hardly any white scar on your brush, and just move it over that kind of area of the hand there like that, towards the outside. sure you get it on everything. And move the brush towards the centre. It looks quite messy at the moment, but let that dry and do it again. But the next time you do it, bring it in towards the centre a little bit more. And then do it another time towards the centre a little bit more. And you'll get a nice kind of blended white area. And we'll show you that in the next step before we go in and add those glows. Once everything's dry, we just want to take some Aethermatic Blue contrast paint and work that into the areas we've just painted white. So you can see there, that's starting to look like it's glowing, which is pretty cool. We also want to put it over the eyes. And if we think we've put too much, just clean the brush off and bring it back over. And then we can cover everything else that we want to with the Aethermatic Blue. So we've got the nose on the top there. We've got the lights. And of course we've got that going into the staff. So just work your way around, get everything covered in this that you want to be glowing blue. Take your time, and we'll come back, and I think next thing we'll paint the base, we'll do some scroll work, and we'll see you on the turntable next. So there we have it. This Space Marine Librarian is done and he's ready for the table. Now don't forget, regardless of which Space Marine chapter you want to use, you can see the cards at the end of this video which will link you to all my Space Marine painting tutorials. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like and a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell to make sure you're notified of all my latest videos. If you'd like to support the channel, then you can do. You can use the Patreon link in my description, where you can get exclusive access to me, monthly frequently asked question posts, behind the scenes, as well as additional tutorial content. Failing that, you can also use the link to Goblin Gaming to get up to 20% off all your wargaming needs, as well as the link to all my recommended equipment. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.